Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. The air in Genoa City felt heavier than usual, thick with secrets and strategies, and by the time Friday rolled around, alliances had quietly shifted behind closed doors. At Newman Enterprises, Victoria stood at the window of her office, staring out at the skyline with the calculating focus she had inherited from her father. But today, she wasn't acting under Victor Newman's command. Today, she was working with her brother. Nick paced behind her desk, restless energy radiating from him. He hated traps. He hated games, but Matt Clark had forced their hand. He's getting sloppy, Victoria said coolly without turning around. He thinks he's invincible because he slipped through the cracks once. Nick scoffed. He didn't slip, he manipulated, there's a difference. Victoria finally turned, her eyes sharp. Then let's manipulate him back. Nick stopped packing. You're sure about this? She stepped closer, lowering her voice even though they were alone. Matt, circling the family again, he's watching, waiting. If we don't draw him out now, he'll strike when we least expect it. Nick clenched his jaw. The idea of baiting a man like Matt Clark went against every protective instinct he had, but doing nothing wasn't an option. What's the play? He asked. Victoria moved around the desk and pulled up a tablet. We leak information, controlled information, something he can't resist. Nick's eyes narrowed. About what? About you. Nick laughed humorlessly. Great. You've been volatile lately, she continued. People know it. We let it slip that you're making a reckless move, an investment, something that looks desperate. And Matt bites because he thinks I'm vulnerable. Exactly. Nick crossed his arms. And where does this information slip? Victoria's lips curved faintly. Through the right channels, ones we know he monitors. Nick studied her. You've already started, haven't you? She didn't deny it. I had to move fast. Nick exhaled slowly. This was classic Victoria, decisive, strategic, already 5 steps ahead. For a brief moment, he wondered what their father would think, but Victor wasn't in that office. This was their move. And if Matt doesn't bite, Nick asked. Victoria's gaze hardened. He will. Across town, Lauren Fenmore Baldwin sat at a corner table at Society, reviewing numbers on her phone. Fenmore's had been steady, reliable, but steady wasn't enough in a city where empires rose and fell overnight. She sensed someone approach before she looked up. Lauren. She lifted her eyes and froze for a fraction of a second. Oh, Victor. He didn't wait for an invitation before sitting across from her. His presence alone shifted the energy of the entire restaurant. To what do I owe the pleasure? She asked, masking her curiosity with polished calm. Victor folded his hands on the table. I have a proposition. Lauren arched a brow. That sounds ominous. Oh, it's business. Which is usually more ominous. Victor's mouth twitched faintly. Fenmore has strong brand loyalty, international potential, but expansion requires protection. Lauren's eyes sharpened. Protection from what? From instability. She leaned back. You mean from you? Victor didn't blink. I mean from those who would exploit vulnerability. There are players circling. Lauren thought of the shifting corporate landscape, of Chancellor Industries' latest shakeups, of whispers she'd heard through Michael. She chose her words carefully. And what exactly are you offering? A strategic partnership, limited, discreet. Lauren's pulse quickened despite her composed exterior. A partnership with Newman Enterprises could elevate Fenmore, globally. It could also entangle her in wars she didn't want. And what do you get out of it? She asked softly. Victor held her gaze. An ally. Lauren studied him, searching for the catch. With Victor, there was always a catch. I'll need time, she said finally. You don't have much. Victor rose smoothly. Consider it carefully. And just like that, he was gone, leaving behind a ripple of tension that lingered long after he exited Society. At Crimson Lights, Sally Spectra stared down at her laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The email draft glowed on the screen. Subject line, resignation. Her jaw tightened. She had poured everything into this latest project. Her designs, her vision, but the corporate maneuvering, the politics, the subtle undermining, it was exhausting. Maybe walking away was the cleanest solution. You look like you're about to detonate something. Sally glanced up to see Audra Charles sliding into the chair across from her. Not detonate, Sally replied dryly, just self-destruct. Audra's eyes flicked to the screen. Resignation. Sally quickly minimized the window, but it was too late. Since when do you quit? Audra asked coolly. Since I'm tired of fighting battles that aren't mine. Audra leaned back, studying her. Let me guess, you're frustrated, you feel boxed in, so your brilliant solution is to walk away and let someone else claim your territory. Sally's eyes flashed. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you, Audra countered smoothly. You thrive under pressure, you hate losing more than you hate conflict. Sally's voice softened slightly. I'm not losing, I'm choosing peace. Audra gave a low laugh. Peace is overrated. Silence hung between them. Who pushed you to this? Audra asked. No one, Sally insisted, but the hesitation was there. Audra leaned forward. Don't make a permanent decision because of temporary frustration. Sally's fingers curled into her palm. You ever feel like the walls are closing in? All the time, Audra admitted. That's when I push back harder. Sally looked at her friend, uncertainty flickering across her face. If you send that email, Audra continued, you're handing someone else control over your narrative, and you hate that. Sally swallowed. You built your name from nothing, Audra said firmly. You don't walk away when things get messy. The words hit home. Sally slowly reopened the draft email. She stared at it for a long moment, then deleted the entire thing. Audra's lips curved. There she is. Sally exhaled shakily. I almost made a huge mistake. That's what friends are for, Audra replied lightly, though her gaze held something more calculating beneath the warmth. Back at Newman Enterprises, the trap was set. Victoria's leak had already begun circulating, whispers of Nick making a risky overseas move, pulling liquidity from secure holdings. Nick's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He and Victoria exchanged a look. A speaker, she mouthed. Nick answered calmly, yes. A pause, then a familiar voice. Heard you're making some bold moves, Nick. Matt Clark. Nick kept his tone neutral. You know how rumors are. I prefer facts. Victoria's eyes gleamed. What do you want, Matt? Nick asked. Maybe I want ins. Victoria's fingers tapped lightly against the desk, a silent signal to keep him talking. Nick smirked faintly. You don't have the capital. Try me. Nick leaned back in his chair. Meet me tonight, we'll talk numbers. There was a beat of silence, then Matt agreed. The line went dead. Nick's pulse pounded. He took the bait, Victoria said quietly. Nick nodded, but tension coiled in his guts. And now, he asked. Victoria's expression turned steely. Now we close the net. Night fell over Genoa City like a curtain before a high-stakes performance. Nick arrived at the agreed location, an upscale but discreet lounge, 10 minutes early. He scanned the room, hyper-aware of every movement. Victoria wasn't physically present, but she was orchestrating everything from a distance, security team on standby. Matt Clark walked in with casual arrogance as though he owned the place. Nick, he greeted smoothly, sliding into the booth opposite him. Oh, Matt. They exchanged measured looks. I have to admit, Matt said, I didn't expect you to reach out. I didn't, Nick replied coolly, you did. Matt chuckled. Semantics. Nick laid out a fabricated proposal, an exaggerated expansion requiring aggressive capital leverage. He watched carefully as Matt's interest sharpened. You're exposed, Matt observed, overextended. That's the risk, Nick said. Matt leaned forward. Or it's an opportunity. For you, Nick asked evenly. For us. Nick let silence stretch. What's your real angle? Nick pressed. Matt smiled thinly. Let's just say I enjoy watching Newman squirm. There it was, the edge beneath the charm. Nick's phone buzzed, a subtle signal from Victoria, phase 2. You want in? Nick asked. I do. Then transfer your share by midnight. Matt studied him. You're serious. Completely. Matt hesitated just slightly. Nick saw it, the crack. You don't have it, Nick said softly. Matt's jaw tightened. You've been bluffing, Nick continued, trying to intimidate, stir chaos. Matt's eyes darkened, careful. Or what? Nick shot back. Across town, Victoria watched a live feed, her pulse steady. She'd anticipated this moment. Matt's financial vulnerabilities were already being quietly exposed through back channels. Back in the lounge, Matt's composure faltered as his own phone buzzed repeatedly. He glanced at the screen and his expression shifted. What is it? Nick asked calmly. Matt stood abruptly. This isn't over. No, Nick agreed, it's just beginnings. Matt walked out, not in control, not victorious. Nick exhaled slowly. Moments later, Victoria called him. He's scrambling, she said. We triggered a chain reaction. His investors are pulling back. Nick allowed himself a faint smile, so the trap worked. For now. There was always a for now in Genoa City. Meanwhile, Lauren sat alone in her office at Fenmore's long after closing. Victor's offer echoed in her mind. A protection. Alliance. Power. She picked up her phone and dialed Michael's. He wants in, she said without preamble. Michael was quiet for a moment. And you? I don't know, she admitted. It could secure Fenmore's future. Or cost you autonomy. Lauren stared at the city lights beyond her window. When did staying independent become the riskier choice? Since you started competing at their level, Michael replied gently. Lauren sighed. She had built her brand on strength and resilience. Aligning with Victor could amplify that or overshadow it. I won't be anyone's pawn, she said firmly. Then make sure any deal reflects that. After she hung up, Lauren made a decision. She wouldn't reject Victor outright, but she wouldn't surrender control either. If there was going to be a partnership, it would be on her terms. At her apartment, Sally closed her laptop and leaned back on her couch, relief washing over her. The resignation email was gone. The impulsive urge had passed. Her phone buzzed with a message from Audra. Told you, don't quit wins. Sally smiled faintly. Maybe she had been ready to walk away because it felt easier than fighting. But easier wasn't her style. She opened her sketchpad and began drawing sharper lines, bolder concepts. If there was a battle coming, she would meet it head-on. Audra across town set her phone down with a satisfied expression. Stopping Sally from quitting wasn't entirely selfless. A strong Sally was an asset in more ways than one. Friendship in Genoa City was rarely simple. Later that night, Victoria joined Nick at the ranch. You did well, she told him. So did you. Nick looked out over the darkened grounds. You think Dad would approve? Victoria considered that. He'd say we were reckless. Nick chuckled softly, then he'd secretly be proud. Silence settled between them, not tense but reflective. Matt won't disappear, Nick said finally. No, Victoria agreed, but now he knows we're not targets. Nick nodded. Across Genoa City, pieces were shifting. Lauren was preparing to negotiate with a titan. Sally was reclaiming her ambition. Audra was quietly positioning herself for future advantage. And Victoria and Nick had reminded a dangerous enemy that the Newman name still carried weight. But in a city built on power plays and fragile alliances, every victory was temporary. The trap had been set and sprung. The next move would determine who truly controlled the board.